So our goals today are to be able to write equations of quadratic functions using vertices, points, and x-intercepts. And then we're going to be able to write quadratic equations to model data, okay, which I think is a valuable tool. Okay, so if we are given the vertex and a point on the graph, what form do you think we want to write the equation in? Cool? Vertex form. And if we're given the vertex, don't we want to write it in vertex form? That makes the most sense. So we're going to use vertex form here. So it all depends what pieces of information we're given about the graph. If we're given the vertex, use vertex form. Okay? I know this is going to blow your mind, but if we are given the x-intercepts, what form do you think we should use? Intercept form. Okay? And if we're given just 3 random points on the graph, we're going to use standard form. And then in the parentheses, I want you to put graphing calculator. All right, so here we go. First thing, it says write an equation of the parabola that passes through the point -1, 2 and has a vertex of 4, -9. We're given the vertex, so we're going to use vertex form. Our vertex form is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Okay, now, what does f of x mean again? Y, doesn't it? So I'm just going to erase that, and I'm going to stick with a y here. Why do I want to do that? Well, in this point represents an x and a y, doesn't it? Okay? Now, this is our vertex. What does this number represent? Or I heard someone say axis of symmetry. I would agree with that. I heard someone say h. I like that the best. That is our h value. We know if it's in vertex form, our vertex is h comma k. Okay, our vertex is hk. Now, I have my h, I have my k, I have an x. X and y here represent what? A point on the graph. How many points are on a graph of a parabola? When we graph them, we usually pick 5, but how many points are on the line? Brooklyn? There's an infinite amount of points, okay? We're just given 1 right now. We're given -1, 2. So this x and a y represent all of the points on the graph, okay? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to plug all that information in. What's the only piece of information here we don't know? We don't know our a value, okay? So here we go. We're going to plug in, this is our x, that's our y, so 2 equals a times our x is -1 minus our h value, which is 4, plus our k value, which is -9, so we'll do -9. Questions with anything I've done so far? I've plugged everything in. Now, I can simplify this. Liam, thank you. I saw just as you raised your hand. Raised your hand? Raised your hand. Raised your hand. Rose your hand? He raised his hand. I've got numbers. I can start evaluating them. What's -1 minus 4? -5. -5 squared is 25. So I'm going to write this as not a25, but 25a, because this gets me 25. -9, and then I have 2 over there. Can't I solve for a here? I'm going to add 9 to both sides and get 11 equals 25a. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 25. And our a value equals 11/25. Now, if you wanted to, you could surely write that as a fraction. I believe that's, or a decimal, excuse me. I think that's 0.44. You could write it that way as well. Now, our goal, guys, our goal is to write an equation. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. I'm going to put f of x here equals, what's our a value? We just found that out. It's 11/25 times x minus, what's our h value?
4.
So x minus 4 squared, and our k value minus 9. The answer is no, okay? And I'll get to that in a second. That's it, okay? So here's what this means. This graph, this function is going to have a vertex of 4, -9. We can check ourselves. Opposite of that value, that has a vertex of 4, -9. And it's actually going to go through the point -1, 2. Okay? Now, Brooklyn had a question. We don't plug in -1, 2? And the answer is no. Because all of the graphs that we've graphed so far, all of the functions that we've graphed so far this chapter, we always have an x and a y, don't we? Or an x and an f of x. Absolutely. We always have that in because that represents infinitely many points on the graph. Questions here at all? Okay. Example 2. It says the graph shows the parabolic path of a performer who is shot out of a cannon, where y is the height in feet. There it is, height in feet. And x is the horizontal distance traveled. First, it says write an equation of the parabola. That's our first goal, or our first part of the problem. Now, if I look at this, am I given the vertex?
Yes.
Yeah, the vertex is the point 50, 35. Okay, and am I given a point on the graph? I am. It's the point 0, 15. What does this point represent? Where the guy started. Okay, so when he left the cannon, how high was he off the ground? He was 15 feet. How high was he at his highest point? $50 or 35? 35, that's the y value, right? So just analyzing the graph a little bit. So again, we're given the vertex. We're going to use vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so this is our h value, and that is our k value. This is our x value, that's our y value. Plug it in, plug it in. So our y here is 15 equals a, that's what we don't know. Our x is 0 minus 50 squared plus 35. Okay, here we go. Now we're just going to be able to just plug and chug. 0 minus 50, well, that's negative 50. What's negative 50 squared? Spencer? 2,500. So here I'm going to have 2,500a plus 35. Again, solving for a. Minus 35 on both sides. This gets me negative 20 equals 2,500a. Divide both sides by 2,500. And a is going to equal, guys, before typing that in our calculator, can't we take a 0 out of this fraction and get like negative 2 over 250? Now, what's in common between negative 2 and 250? There's a 2. So I'm going to take a 2 out, so I'm actually going to be left with negative 1 over 125. Now, if you divide that on our calculator, I think you'll get like 0.002, or excuse me, 0.008. Okay, 8/100ths. If you want to use that, you could. I'm going to keep it in this fraction. Actually, let me put it in a decimal. That is negative 0.008. Is that right? Hannah, is that what you got? Oh, I thought that's what you're doing. Is that right? Okay. It's a great question. So rather than audit people, they get to this, I know I need to divide, so we immediately just plug in our calculator. Well, if I have a 0, if I'm reducing a fraction and they both end in a 0, I can just eliminate that. So really then I'm looking at this fraction right here. And then negative 2 and 220, or 250 rather, they both have a 2 in common. So therefore I can take a 2 out and I'm left with negative 1 and 125 because 250 divided by 2 is 125. Okay? So my function is going to be f of x equals, my a value is negative 0.008 times x, what's my h value? Minus 50 squared plus my k value, which is 35. Oh, we're not done. The second part says the performer lands in a net 90 feet from the cannon. So horizontally, he's 90 feet from the cannon. What is the height of the net? So we said the initial height of the cannon was 15. Now, just by estimating on the graph, what do you think this is going to be? Well, it's above 20, below 25, maybe 22 or 23. Okay, so let's figure it out. How are we going to figure that out? It's a good guess. Now, our horizontal distance is what here? 90. Doesn't x represent our horizontal distance? Yep. So if we want to know the height when our horizontal distance is 90, we're going to plug in 90. So f of 90 equals negative 0.008 times 90 minus 50 squared plus 35. (90 minus 50 is 40. 40 squared, 1,600. Then 1,600 times negative 0.008. 1,600 times negative 0.008. And then add 35 to that. So we got 40 here, 40 squared, that's 1,600. 1,600 times negative 0.008, that gave us a number. Add 35 to it, and f of 90 is 22.2. So we were close. What's 22.2 mean again? It's the height of the net. When this person that got shot out of a cannon was 90 feet horizontally from the cannon, he landed in a net, which is 22.2 feet in the air. Any questions there? Okay, moving on here. Top of the next page. 3 more. Now it says, write an equation of the parabola that passes through the point 2,5 and has x-intercepts -2 and 4. So now we're given x-intercepts. Let's use intercept form. Intercept form is y equals a times x minus p, x minus q. Okay, so again, here, this is my x value, this is my y value, One of these is going to be my P, one of these is going to be my Q. Doesn't matter which is which. Okay, so I'm going to put 5 here because that's my Y value, equals A, which we're going to try to figure out. My X needs to go in both locations. It needs to go in both X's, and that is 2. So it's going to be 2. Now my P value is -2. Is it going to be +2? It needs to be +2, remember? These signs are opposite. So when we go from function to intercepts, we switch the signs. When we go from intercepts to function, we need to switch the signs again. So that'll be 2 + 2, and then this will be 2, because that's, again, that's our X, -4. So this will be 5 equals A, and this is 4, this is -2, right? So now 4 and -2 is -8. So I get -8A equals 5. And then I can divide both sides by -8. And A equals -5/8. So there is our A value. Let's go ahead and plug this guy in. So we're not going to use X and Y, but I'm going to use my A value, -5/8 times X plus 2, X minus 4. Hannah.
Would you rather have us have our A value in fraction or decimal?
I don't care. You guys would probably rather have decimals, am I correct?
No.
Raise your hand if you would rather have a fraction. Okay, which is some. From my experiences, most people tend to do decimal. I usually try to go against that, because the further you go in math, the more the fractional answers you'll see. Now, what's -5 divided by 8? I don't even know that.
-0.625.
625. So that's not terrible. That's not terrible if you wanted to have it as a decimal. All right, here we go. It says, a meteorologist creates a parabola to predict the temperatures tomorrow, where X is the number of hours after midnight. Okay, so X represents the hours after midnight. So what does 13 represent on the graph? What's 13 on the X represent? I'll start over. What does 1 on the graph on the X mean? 1 in the morning. What's 2 on the X mean? 2 in the morning. What's 12 represent? Well, this is after midnight. So 12 would represent noon the next day. 13 represents 1. 14 represents 2. 24 represents midnight the following day, and so on. Okay? And the temperature here is in Celsius. So it says write a function f, or f of x, that models the temperature over time. So if I look at my graph, I'm given a point which is 0, 9.6, and then I'm given my 2 intercepts. So we're going to use intercept form. So y equals a times x minus p, x minus q. Hang with me here. This one and one more, which is pretty straightforward. So what's my p value here? Just so we're on the same page here. P is 4 and our Q is 24. So that means when we plug them in, then we'll have to switch our signs. So my Y here is 9.6 equals A times my X is 0, right? There's X, there's Y. 0 minus 4 and 0 minus 24. in my mind, the biggest place to make a mistake, or the number one place to make a mistake, would be getting our signs right on our P's and our Q's. Excuse me. Now I get 9.6 equals A times -4 times -24. Negative times a negative is a positive, so what's 4 times 24? That's 96, so I get 96A, and then I can divide both sides by 96. It's 9.6 divided by 96. .1, that's just 1/10. That's a fraction. 1/10. Okay, so our function is going to be f of x equals 1/10 times x minus 4, x minus 24. What is the coldest temperature? Now, if I look at my graph, temperature is represented by my y, isn't it? By looking, it looks like -10. Let's figure it out for sure. Make sure they're right. How am I going to find that? Plug what in? Well, isn't -10 a y, though? We need to plug in an x. And x represents the hours after midnight. We need to plug in a time. Now, if this truly is a parabola, isn't the coldest temperature going to happen at the vertex? Isn't that a minimum? So what is our axis of symmetry here? Well, let's figure it out. P plus Q divided by 2. 4 plus 24 is 28. 28 divided by 2 is 14. That means my axis of symmetry is at 14. I need to flip these signs, so 4 and 24. I need to switch the signs for my function, but these are my intercepts. So what's 14 tell us? Axis of symmetry, yes.
That's what we plug in.
That's what we're going to plug in, but what does that mean relative to the function? James? That is our time. That means the coldest temperature is going to happen 14 hours after midnight, which is what time in the morning? Excuse me. What time in the afternoon? 2 in the afternoon. Wow, that's kind of weird. Coldest is 2 in the afternoon? Wow.
Weird.
So we're going to plug it in. We're going to do f of 14. 1/10 times 14 minus 4 times 14 minus 24. This is going to get me 10. And this is -10. What's 10 times -10? -100. What's 1/10 of 100? 10. So f of 14 is in fact, I guess this would be -10. 1/10 of -100 is -10. It makes sense. That's what the graph said. Okay. The last one, I think it's a little bit easier. Here it says, the table shows the estimated profits, which is our Y, for a concert when the charge is X dollars per ticket. Write and evaluate a function to determine what the charge per ticket should be to maximize profit. Now, here's what's happening. Eventually, what do we notice about the profit? As the ticket price goes up, what do we notice about the profit? It goes up, but then eventually it goes down. Now, why would that be? How can ticket prices go up, but our profit goes down? Spencer?
People don't want to pay more for the extra ticket, pay the extra money.
There gets to a point where the ticket prices get so high that people aren't going to come to the concert anymore. Like, that's too much. Okay, so trying to maximize their profit by picking the right ticket price. Okay, everyone needs a graphing calculator. If you don't have one, go grab one. It's kind of weird. Right when I said that, I heard a bunch of
It's a lot of getting up and walking up there.
yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? Okay, here's what we need to do on our graphing calculators. Now, we've already where we typed in the function and then got the graph. Well, now we're going to type in points on the graph, okay, and get the function. So everyone right near here needs to hit the stat button. Okay, stat button. And then we're going to hit enter on edit. Are there any questions where that's located? Stat, hit the stat button. And then hit enter where it says edit. We're going to edit the information we're going to put in. So here's what we're going to do. On L1, we're going to put our X's. So I'm going to put 2, enter, 5, enter, 8, enter, 11, enter, 14, enter, oops, 11, enter, let's try that one more time, 11, enter, 14, enter, 17. Okay, then you go over, those are our X's, and now we're going to input our Y's. So 2600, might be better on here. 2600, enter. 6500, enter. 8600. 8900. 74. Make sure you get the correct X with the correct Y. Now, we're just taking an estimate here. Where do you guys think the maximal ticket price is going to be? How much money, which is our X, will give us the best profit?
11.
From our data, 11 bucks would.
Yeah.
Okay? So now everyone needs to hit second. And then hit the mode button right here, which is quit. We're just going to quit out of it. Okay? That's all. Then we're going to hit the stat button again. And we're going to go over to calc. We're going to calculate what type of equation this is. Now, it says, if you notice here, it says line reg. That means a linear regression. If we want our data to represent a straight line, okay, we don't want that. Here it says quad reg, where we want our data to represent a quadratic regression, a cubic regression, a quartic regression. We're going to do quadratic regression. Go down to 5 and hit enter. Okay, we want our X list to be L1. If you go back, don't do it, but if you remember, we had that first column was L1, our second column was L2. We want our X's to be L1 and our Y's to be L2. I don't know what all the other stuff means, so go all the way down and hit calculate.
It just says quadratic. It doesn't have all that other fun stuff.
Press enter again.
Here we go. Okay, now what does this mean? We're given our A, B, and our C values. So this function is, I'm going to have this go away, it's going to be f of x equals, what's our A value? Negative 100?
Yes.
Negative 100 x squared. What's our B value? 2,000?
Yeah.
Plus 2,000x plus our C value minus 1,000. That's our function that best models this data. Now it says, write a function that to determine what the charge per ticket should be to maximize the profit. Well, we're going to find out. What's the charge per ticket that will maximize our profit? But we go from 8 to 11. Maybe it's 9. Maybe it's $9.50. Maybe it's $9.01. Maybe it's $10. We don't know. So if we're trying to maximize
That really just scared me.
our profit, what do you think we should do? Find our maximum. Let's find our maximum. Here's the deal, guys. I don't know what x value we need to plug in. So we need to find that by figuring out our maximum. And really, do we need our maximum? Because what's the maximum going to tell us? How much what? Talk to the person next to you. What does our maximum in this situation represent? Go. Profit, right? Is that what we're trying to find? We're trying to find how much profit? That's what we're trying to find. What does our maximum represent here?
Profit.
Tyler said profit. It represents the maximum amount of money we're going to make. Do we want to find that? We want to make the most money, but what will determine our money?
Ticket price.
Ticket price. Well, isn't ticket price our x? So if I were just to graph this for a second, here's my axis of symmetry somewhere. I don't know where it is. Here's our value, or here's our profit. So here's our profit. Here is our ticket price, which represents our x. We want to figure out what x value should we charge per ticket to get our maximum profit. So do we need the vertex? We actually just need what? The axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. Would you guys agree that there's some x value out there? There's some ticket price. Some ticket price. Maybe it's $8.50, maybe it's $9, maybe it's $9.25, maybe it's $10, I don't know. That gives us the best situation to make the most money. So let's find our axis of symmetry. X equals opposite of B over 2A. Opposite of B is negative 2,000 over 2 times my A value, which is negative 100. So that gets me negative 2,000 divided by negative 200. $10 per ticket will yield us the maximum profit.